now about how we actually transfer skills through coaching. Because as a sales leader, you need to coach people. You need to get people to move from one skill set to another. But there's virtually no training for that. If you're an educator, you're trained in how to do that. But if you're a salesperson, you become promoted to sales leader, where was that bit in your education? It doesn't exist. Now, this is a whole workshop in itself. You know, it's probably a couple of workshops in itself, so I can't cover everything. But I just want to cover a couple of key points here. The first one there is hear and listen. Salespeople hear, but do they listen? And this is where you've got to check. Are they just hearing, but not actually listening? If you want to educate people, check they're actually listening. Get some feedback on what you've just said, because they're nodding. You know, the lights are on, but no one's at home type of problem. Their eyes are open, but they're actually not listening to you. If they listen, then they have a better chance of understanding. And check for understanding. Is there actually understanding there? And then relate that to their ability. You know, they're already doing things well. They could always do things better. So be a person who looks for what's going well and praise that, recognize that, and recognize that they could do things better. Don't be a fault finder, someone who criticizes. Look for the good and tell them how they could do it even better. And then we're looking for their motivation to learn, to self-discover, self-address the problems, and to get that commitment to educate themselves. Now, in a skill transfer process, there are lots and lots and lots of detail on this, but those are the fundamental steps we have to go through. And you've got to be hitting motivation. You've got to be getting that commitment to get them to take up those skills. Because often people feel very comfortable in their comfort zone around the things they know now. They don't think they need to do anything new or different. I'm good where I am. But you've got to get the motivation to want to do better. You've got to get that commitment to have the behavior change. And if there's one thing, if you ask me, well, what does Dale Carnegie training do that's specific to Dale Carnegie? I would say it's getting behavior change. And that is extremely difficult. We are trainers, 250 hours minimum training to become a certified Dale Carnegie trainer to get behavior change. And for us, we know how hard it is. So if you're just a salesperson who's become a sales leader and you haven't any of that type of detailed training, how do you get behavior change in people? Not very easy. So these steps become very important. Now we look at the cycle of accelerated learning here. And on the top right-hand side, attitude. Yes, they may need to, they may want to, but they don't do it. There's no behavior change. There's a motivation gap there. They're not motivated enough to make the changes in what they normally do to get a behavior outcome that's different. So that's one problem we've got to work on. So you've got to get them to, I will do it and show me how. So you've got to work on that attitude. Just telling them it doesn't work. You've got to get them to actually want to do it. That means take it from, yes, I will, to I do. Okay, and then we come into knowledge where we've got principles, fundamentals, concepts. Same problem. I give you information. It's a classic of the old cliche about giving people fish and teaching people how to fish. When you give information, you're giving people fish all the time. So you give them some fish today, well, you've got to come back tomorrow and give them some more fish, more information. It just goes on and on and on. The problem is you give them the information, but they don't use it. They're still in their comfort zone. They don't own it. So you've got to come back and give them some more later for the next round of fish. Instead, what you want is self-discovery. You want people to own the information and to want to use it, to actually take the behavior change to use it. So that gets out of I know into I do it. That is a critical part. And the way to do that is here, right practice with coaching. So correct modeling of the behavior, and then the coaching to get that I know becomes I do. And this is where, for a lot of training, it breaks down because we stop at the sort of intellectual level of I know, and it never gets into the physical of I do. And then finally, once we get that, it becomes a habit, becomes a default habit. So you have follow-up coaching, you try and make that the new behavior pattern so that you get this cycle of learning in adaptive skill transfer. But you've got to have all of those pieces happening to get an outcome.